This is Coach Fozia, and I'm really excited to spend some time with you today to talk about a very important topic, and that is our emotions, and specifically strategies that we can use to deal with our emotions. Because we all want to have control over those emotions and not just tolerate them. Before we go on, I just wanted to check in with you and ask you, how are you feeling today? Dr. Mark Brackett, who is a research psychologist and the founding director of the Yale Center for Emotional Intelligence, he wrote a book called Permission to Feel. And in this book, he talks about this greeting that we use countless times a day, and in its variations, whether it is how are you feeling, how are you doing? And our common responses. Great, thanks. How are you? Everything's fine. I'm good. I'm busy. Dr. Mark Brackett says, and I quote, "It is one of the greatest paradoxes of the human condition. We ask some variation of the question, how are you feeling, over and over, which would lead one to assume that we attach some importance to it. And yet, we never expect or desire or provide an honest answer," unquote. I thought this was a really profound realization. This quote really got me thinking. Yes, we do ask this question, how are you, or some variation of it, on autopilot countless times in our day. And the response that we wait to hear is also on autopilot. We expect a 1 or 2 word response. But what if we could expand our emotional vocabulary and provide a more detailed and honest and unedited response? As a society, we think we have emotional intelligence, which is our ability to monitor our own and other people's emotions. But we struggle to answer the most basic question of how are you feeling? So let's try this again. How are you feeling today? And you cannot respond with good, fine, busy, well, or okay. I hope you are feeling good. Oops, I mean energized. Moving on now. We are going to talk about 3 strategies that we can use to deal with our emotions. The first is identifying our emotions. The second is labeling our emotions. And the third is accepting our emotions and self-care. In order for us to identify our emotions, it is important for us to be able to find some space in our day to be able to do that. There is a beautiful quote by Viktor Frankl that I absolutely love and I often go back to. Viktor Frankl says, and I quote, "Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom." So let me give you an example. Someone has said something very hurtful to me. So there are a couple of ways that I can respond. Today, let's look at 3. In the heightened moment, I can feel my heart racing and my palms are sweaty and the words can't come fast enough out of my mouth. I react and I let that person know how upset I am, and I am in a rage. Second, someone has said something very hurtful to me. I hear what they say, and my tummy is in a knot. But I decide to just suppress or ignore the feeling and the body sensation that came with it. And I keep going on with my day, although I do feel very irritated. The third, someone has said something very hurtful to me. I choose to take a pause. I take a deep breath, and in that moment of pause, I check in with myself to see how I am feeling. Am I angry? Am I disappointed? Am I confused? Am I irritated? Once I can identify what I am feeling, I can then choose to respond in a way that is aligned with my values. I think it's obvious which one we all strive to do, which is the third, to take that pause, to mindfully reflect on how we are feeling and then respond. We're constantly feeling things. And while we cannot spend every waking moment analyzing our emotions, it is important for us to pause and check in with ourselves as often as we can. It's important to ask, what's the story that I'm telling myself? Am I taking my thoughts and treating them as facts? Does this feeling that I have define who I am? Can I sit in this emotion and not let it take over me, have power over me? Identifying our emotions, reflections. How do you respond when you are faced with a big emotion? Many of us have a limited emotional vocabulary, which is what we discovered at the beginning of this video. But when we are unable to articulate and express those deeper emotions, then it's difficult for us to be able to really understand them. Dr. Susan David, who is an instructor in psychology at Harvard University, she said, and I quote, "Words matter. If you're experiencing a strong emotion, take a moment to consider what to call it. But don't stop there. Once you've identified it, try to come up with 2 more words that describe how you are feeling. You might be surprised at the breadth of your emotions, or that you've unearthed a deeper emotion buried beneath the more obvious one." Unquote. Let's take a closer look at the anger iceberg to reflect on this further. When we look at an iceberg, what do we see? We only see the tip, and it's the same with our emotions. What a person may show us, what a person may present, is anger. That's what we see on the surface. But if we go deeper, we realize that there are lots of other emotions hidden under the surface, hidden under the anger that we cannot initially determine, like embarrassment, overwhelm, grief, and exhaustion, to name a few. There is also a lot of scientific research about how labeling our emotions can have a calming effect on the brain. Dr. Dan Siegel, who is a well-known author, coined the term name it to tame it. And he has done extensive research to show that when you name the emotion, it squirts soothing neurotransmitters to the right limbic brain and is able to calm it down. Labeling our emotions, reflections. Which emotions and feelings are hidden below the surface for you? It is really important that we accept all of our emotions with an open attitude and pay attention to them and let ourselves fully experience them. When we accept our emotions, it can also help us in our decision making, and we will feel less distracted, and it can have a positive effect on our health and well-being. When we accept and regulate our emotions, we are more present in our relationships with family and friends, and we may also feel more productive and creative. There are days when we will experience more of one emotion than another. And let us continue to remind ourselves that our emotions will come and go, but they do not define who we are. And when we're having a big emotion, we must be kind to ourselves and give ourselves space to work through the emotion. It's also important for us to find ways to regulate our emotions rather than letting them regulate us, and find practical ways to help us to do that. Now, there are many different strategies out there that we can use to slow down and help us process. We call this self-care, and each of us will have a different way of practicing self-care. But here are a few of my favorite ones. You must do what works best for you. So there's mindful breathing, going for a walk in nature or any other form of exercise. Speak to a family member, a friend, or a coach. Sometimes speaking to a third party can help us to see a perspective that we had overlooked initially. Perhaps we can journal. Writing can sometimes help us make sense of and accept our experience. And sometimes we get a greater insight when we can organize our thoughts on paper. Go for a warm bath or a shower. Listen to an inspirational podcast or relaxing music. Have some sort of a gratitude practice. That can help to ground us and help also to put things into perspective. Accepting our emotions and self-care. Reflections. Which self-care practices help you to regulate your emotions? Thank you so much for watching this video. I would love to hear from you and know how you enjoyed learning about emotions. Here is the challenge for the day. We all need to expand our emotional vocabulary. So I challenge you, as you go through your day and experience different emotions, I challenge you to take a moment to find that space and really think about what that word is that accurately describes the emotion that you are feeling in the moment. I look forward to hearing from you. Bye for now.